Okay, hi Frank. What was your first computer?
That's a long time ago, and it was a Commodore 64. I think it's about 1983, something like that. I was 11 years old, I guess, when one of our teachers introduced that computer in the school.
Mhm.
I think we were one of the first schools in Belgium to have, I think, 10 of those Commodore 64s. It was also the time you had some computer clubs, so he took us, some interested guys, to this computer club. And I got my first one when I was 11.
Okay, and how did computer club look like? So was it like, I don't know, a military place or like, outer space? So
It was in a youth hostel, and just anyone who had a computer brought it with him.
Yeah.
So that meant, it was a full package. It was a monitor, it was a computer, power supplies, a tape deck for the programs. It was not a laptop at that time, so it was really a big move you had to do. And we were just exchanging tips and some code and examples of what we were doing.
But there was no special design involved. It was just a place. Okay.
Just a bunch of tables, and everyone brought his computer and was showing what he did with it, and you could exchange some stuff.
So what I remember, I was in your age. In my first, it was like a computer place, but it was already styled like a military place. So what they did, they were students. They used like a camouflage covers, so everything looked strange. And the next computer place I remember it was like a replica of some space station, not space station, something like that. So it was always a little bit interesting. So I'm curious how your computer place looked like.
Well, it's a very long time ago, so I have to dig deep in my memory to find it back.
So then the next time I will hypnotize you, So then I will find out how it actually looked like. Yeah. Okay, cool. And so you liked C64 immediately, or?
Yeah, indeed. And I only had one game. It was a game. The games were with that kind of cartridges, so you had to power down your computer, plug it in the back, and then power on your computer again.
Was it C64? You are sure?
Yeah. It was some kind of cartridge.
Okay.
I only had one game, so I only played this one game. I cannot even remember the name.
Okay.
But what I started doing more was programming with BASIC and go to print something and then go back to that line and print it 1,000 times. So that was really got me interested. And when I was a bit older, I think 14 or 15 years old, I found a book which was describing how you could control relay boards with your Commodore 64.
What boards?
It was an extension board with 8 relay.
Okay.
So you could toggle some power on and off.
And a relay is something like with a low voltage. You can switch on and off higher voltage,
indeed.
right?
Yeah. And
it works like with electromagnetic switches or something like this, right?
Yeah. There is a little magnet in there, and that magnet is controlled by low power from your computer. Then you can toggle a switch, and then you can connect higher voltage. And I ordered this book then in the Netherlands. I'm from Belgium, so that was really, at that time, that was difficult. You had to do a payment to a foreign country. And I ordered this book with this board, but I only got the board and no electronic components. So I had to really go to a shop and buy this and buy a soldering station and connect everything together. And the first time I connected it to my Commodore, I heard some strange electronic sounds. So I thought I destroyed my computer, tried it again, and it worked. And from that time...
It worked immediately?
It worked immediately, and then I had to program with peeks and pokes. I cannot remember even what the commands were.
Lucky you. I tried. I was very fascinated by electronics. Yeah. But whatever trivial I did, I never worked. I don't know why. I probably overheated something or whatever, but it never worked. And I say, okay, I'm just too stupid for electronics. I will never manage to do this. And even now, if I have something to do with electronics, my first thing is it will never work. So I could try. It works right now. But this was my first impression, it is too hard, it will never work. I was in your age. I was just fascinated by the electronics, that you can actually, do something, little pieces you can solve together, but it never worked. And because it worked in your case for the very first time, your first success story.
I was very lucky. I was very lucky.
Very lucky, really.
And it fascinated me because I had my Lego trains, and I could control my train with my computer. And the joystick of the Commodore 64, I opened that, and it's a very simple thing. It's just 4 or 5 buttons, and every button is connected to a wire to the computer. So I had on my train, I had little magnets and relay contacts, magnetic contacts across the track. So my computer knew where my train was on the track, and I could control the power and some deviations. So that was really fascinating. And
how old were you? 15?
14, 15.
Crazy.
It was fun, and that's a bit the thing I find now is then it was difficult. You had to find your components, you had to order something abroad, and it was all very difficult. And that's the big difference with the current times. You find everything online on eBay. You can buy components almost for free.
Wait a second, you are skipping 40 years of history.
I'm comparing the history, because then it was indeed very difficult to find all that kind of stuff. And I was lucky that I found it, that I found a book that someone in the shop helped me to explain how you have to solder things. And that was really fascinating. And those relays which controlled my Lego train, I could also use it to control lights. And I had a disco bar at that time. I was a DJ. So I took my computers to control my lights of my disco bar. So it was really fun to combine all those stuff. You had music, you had programming, you had electronics. And that really fascinated me that with some simple code, between brackets, you could indeed control stuff around you.
Two questions. First, Lego train, because I remember the Lego trains. I wanted to have one back then, but I never got it. But what I remember, they were different to now. So back then, the Lego trains, they had the metal rails, right?
Yeah, indeed.
And they were powered by the metal rails. Now they are independent, so the rails are from plastic.
Yeah. Indeed. Then you had, my son now has a new Lego train, and indeed the battery is inside the train.
Yeah.
But at that time, you had a power supply next to the track.
Yeah.
And you had this metal track in the middle.
Yeah.
So indeed, you can just cut this cable and control it through a relay that it goes on and off.
Yeah, cool. And was it cooler? So was the Lego back then better than now, or?
Lego, you can never destroy it, so it stays a fantastic toy. But for that kind of purpose, at that time, it was better.
But what do you like more, the old trains or the new trains?
Well, the new trains are very cool.
Okay.
The design is very cool. But now you have the Lego Mindstorm, so you can have something similar.
But my impression is now the Lego Technic, for instance, is modularized.
Yeah.
So, and back then, for instance, what I remember, I built my own gears. I had the motor, and the motor was unusable. So you had to create your own gears, and now you get a motor with the gears. So you only have to put, the wheel and it goes. So for me, it's right now a little bit more boring than back then. And back then also, the Technic stuff was less designed. So there were more generic parts.
Yeah.
And right now, everything works perfectly. But, it only works perfectly or only looks perfectly for that model.
Yeah, indeed.
So this is the difference.
Yeah, it is a big difference. But all the small blocks you have now was not available at that time.
So about programming. So you used Visual Basic?
It was,
no, Visual Basic. Sorry, Basic.
Just Basic, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, and how you found out about the pick and pokes? Because assume what you did is, with the poke, you could set, the voltage or whatever of the relay, right?
Yeah, it was indeed toggling a relay on and off.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
How you found out about the address of the relay? So this is, for instance...
It was all in this book. It was one book.
Okay.
And it's very pity. The biggest mistake in my life is that I just dumped everything. I don't have my Commodore anymore. I don't have the book anymore.
Oh,
I lost a bit of my history.
Yeah, but now we capture your history right now. This is a little bit of backup what we are doing right now in the podcast. Okay, cool.
No, it can never be lost again.
With 15, you did which is actually incredible. If you think about that, this is when was it? 1990.
What you now call a nerd, I was it at that time. I'm still am a nerd, and I'm a bit proud of it. I think that's a quality mark. Eh?
Yeah, but back then, when was it? Was 1990s?
1987, something like that.
But it was absolute high tech back then, right? It was not usual to do something like that.
It was high tech by then. I think the book was from Elektor, who still publishes this kind of books and magazines.
What's the name?
Elektor.
Elektor. Okay.
Yeah. So my book is also published by them. So they publish electronics magazines, books. They also sell this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I found it in the library back then. So I had the luck, or in the computer club. Cannot remember really.
Okay.
Too long ago.
Okay, so you did then the trains and the disco lights. So what was your next project? So you stick with the C64 or what happened then?
I stick with C64
sorry. It's too interesting. But you played games or you never had time to play games? We just
I had this one game.
What was it?
That's it, I think. It was some kind of Space Invader stuff.
Hey, cool.
Something like that.
Yeah.
You enjoyed it? We had a computer. I enjoyed it, yes, but I love more the programming stuff.
Yeah, sure.
It's now the same thing. My son loves Fortnite and PlayStation, and he challenged me to make new games for him. So
the Fortnite stuff is terrible. Everyone talk about Fortnite. I tried to install it on my iPad, and I installed that. Then there was an update, 1.5 gig. Then I did something. Next time update again is okay. I delete that. So this is too much updates, you know. Everyone talks about microservices and small things, and then I saw I don't know, and
then you have Fortnite, yes.
a strange creature on the screen, and had to download 1.5 gig of something. And this was and then I just immediately deleted. I think my experience with Fortnite is like 10 minutes, and 10 minutes playing and 2 hours updates. So this is.
No, I tried to make very simple JavaFX games for him.
JavaFX, okay, and he was delighted, right? He dumped, the Fortnite.
Yeah, he made some drawings of fishes and a shark, and that's the kind of game I make for him.
Okay, so you could become billionaire with JavaFX then, It's like a competitor to Fortnite.
Yeah, let's hope so. But dream on.
Okay, perfect. So, but what happened after the C64 basic time? I
stayed with Commodore and I bought an Amiga 500.
Wow, this was my dream machine.
I still think that it was way advanced. I didn't do any electronics or programming school. I went to film school, high school.
Hey, cool.
And I used my computer.
Sorry, what you learned at the film school? So what?
So in Belgium you had 3 film schools. 2 of them were artistic, where you became a director.
Okay.
Mainly, yeah. Cool. And then you had the 3rd school, and that's the one I went, and was really technical. So you were industrial engineer, but trained to be a cameraman, soundman, video editor, an engineer in film and video. And there, we learned to work with images. So I used my Amiga to make animations. Try to make that very bombastic intros you have for movies. That kind of stuff.
This is how you went your way. You find your way to Rocky 1, probably, right? This was the intro made by you.
Yeah. But if you now look back to it, it was very amateuristic. But yeah, we were students and we were just trying stuff out.
Question: why you had a lots of experience with electronics and the C64? How you got the idea to go to the film school? I mean,
I went visiting some engineering schools.
Yeah.
And then also to this film school, and it was in a little castle in a park in Brussels.
Cool.
And they had this TV studio in this castle. I later discovered it was really old. They started building a new one when I was in that school. But I've always interested in how things work, how you combine stuff.
Okay.
And so that's what we did there. We had a bunch of cameras, and then you had to connect them, and then you had to arrange everything that they worked smoothly together, that they had the same color, that the sound was there, that you had enough microphones. I was also doing some radio at that time. So combining everything, which is visual, sound, electronics, to get to an output. I was not that much interested in the film part, because film is very different. You have to record something, then this tape has to go to a laboratory where they develop it, and then you get it back, and then it takes days before you see what you've done. And with video in a TV studio, you have immediately your result. So that was very fascinating. That's also what I did when I graduated. I was a video editor, so I worked for a couple of TV stations as freelancer, and did video editing, where you indeed get a bunch of tapes, and you have to make a documentary, for instance. In one day, you have to produce 10 minutes of a finished result. And at that time, making a video edit was with a lot of players and a recorder and a lot of equipment. And it was only after a few years that started evolving into computer editing. So you took your tapes, you recorded them to computer, converted them to video files, and you edited in Avid and Media Pro, was it? So at that time you had digital video. And then I became interested again in the programming stuff because my clients came with a company movie, for instance.
One question: the school, was it university school? Was it university?
It's high school, yes. So I graduated there. Yeah, high school.
I can just imagine. You said this is a castle, old castle. The school was inside a castle. I can imagine that the Halloween party was really fun at the film school at the castle. Is it true?
I don't know. I can't remember a Halloween party. But it was in a very big park. So if we wanted to study and it was very hot, we were just in the park. So it was just outside of Brussels, in Vorst. Yeah, so it was a very nice environment.
Okay. But if you cannot, I mean, Halloween party is the first which comes in mind. Film school, in an old castle, in a large park, Halloween. I mean, you did something wrong.
Yeah, I did something wrong. But at that time, Halloween party did already exist 30 years ago.
I have no idea. But if not parties, some ghost stories or at least some ghost movies would be fun. There was no ghost movie?
No. But yeah, we went to the movie 3 times a week. So we had a very big cinema in Brussels. So we saw all the movies.
Yeah.
As a film student, you have to.
Yeah, for sure. This was your home assignment,
Yeah.
So you became interested again in programming after the analog videos were digitalized, and you get your clients came with movies to you. And were some semi-famous movies you edited, or
no? It was all for television, documentaries, cooking programs. I learned a lot of cooking at that time. Okay. I did 3 different cooking shows that I edited.
You did something wrong with the cookies, or just funny moments, or no? So you cut something wrong?
No. It was. I had the luck; it was not live, so we could fix everything.
Okay. And what you programmed? So what you wanted to do?
Well, the question came with company movies that they wanted to put them. At that time, CD-ROMs were the thing. CD-ROM and DVD.
Yeah.
So you had, I don't know if you have ever seen those. You had these CD-ROMs, which were cut out in the shape of a business card.
No.
So they were a square, but you only had 15 megabytes left because a CD-ROM starts from the inside to the out. So the data is from inside to outside. So you only had a really narrow little ring in the middle, which was left. Yeah. I think you could put 15 megabytes or something like that on there.
Cool.
So having a small program with a demonstration of what the company was doing, and then a video was really challenging. Having 30 seconds of video on there. So it was before YouTube. Transcoding a video to a very small AVI file. Was really a challenge. And then you had Macromedia Director, which was a programming environment to build this kind of interactive presentations. It was bought by Adobe. Lingo was the programming language. And actually, the Lingo itself, I cannot really remember, but the Lingo then later became ActionScript in Flash, which really is an object-oriented programming language
that
to
even
do visual stuff.
They actually proposed this ActionScript as a JavaScript standard, and it became very, very similar to Java. So I know projects where they built entire front ends with ActionScript. And they used the Eclipse-based tooling. I forgot actually the name. So they created
Flex Builder.
Flex Builder, exactly. So they built the front end with. I was in the project ActionScript, and I was actually responsible for the backend. So we did the backend services, and they did the others did the front ends.
Yeah. So the first thing we did was with this Lingo. Then you had DVDs, but that was very short period. That was not really interesting for companies. And then, the next step was bringing this video to a website. The very first website with video. And if you want a website that is easy updatable, you need the content management system. So that turned into C# code. And my first sites were even with an Access database, which is really a no-go.
You single-threaded, right?
Yeah, indeed. So it was really... it worked, but it was not perfect. So that became MySQL and SQL Server later.
So that's interesting. So you started very fast with 15, and you were a true hacker. Then you wasted some years with CD-ROMs in DVDs, cutting holes in CDs, and then you rebooted again with C#, right?
Yeah,
so it was
indeed.
2012 or?
I have to look. Yeah, it will be something like that. A bit earlier, I think. Even my first websites were with not Dreamweaver. It was Front Page. Microsoft Front Page.
It was beautiful markup. It generated beautiful. This Front Page was famous for clean and beautiful markup, right?
I hated it.
Yeah, you had one caption on the screen, and it generated like 50 megs of very strange, nested text.
Yeah, indeed. That was my big problem with front page. You started with a new website, and you immediately had a lot of stuff, and you had no idea what was happening.
Yeah.
And then I went to Dreamweaver, and you started with zero. You had to do everything yourself. But it was way cleaner, and you knew what was happening, and you knew what we were doing. So that's a bit the same now you have with Angular. If you start with scratch, you already have a few hundred megabytes of code, and have no idea what's happening inside.
With Angular, I would say, is even more magic than front page. I would say.
Yeah.
I think what Microsoft should do, they should do front page Angular edition. So like they should generate the HTML and Angular at once, so that will be even more popular. So then we have.
It was indeed my issue with front page. I started with it, but I really moved on very fast because I didn't find what was happening in there.
The funny story is back then I got a company asked me to evaluate IDEs for the web. So I evaluated front page, then Dreamweaver, then Adobe PageMill, then were NetDynamics something Studio and Cold Fusion and all others. Then Hot Metal or something. There was a Hot Metal editor. And I say, I'm just too stupid. I don't get it, how it works. I mean, this is like, I would never get it, right? And then on Windows, I just fire up Notepad and wrote some HTML text. I saw immediately the results. And I saw, that's really simple. I mean, what they are doing, I have no idea. And then if someone asked me, what I'm using for web development, I sometimes said, front page or to be credible, But I always wrote it with Notepad back then. And then I think I bought, the next editor was not Ultra Edit, I think, but one before something. But Notepad was my start. And I did everything with Notepad, actually. And then I never admitted, because I thought this is like, Notepad is for beginners and the front page is for the webmasters. This was my idea, because I couldn't actually find out what happens behind the scenes, right?
But the advantage of a Dreamweaver was you also typed in just your code, but you saw a preview of it.
Yeah, but this was a mix, a strange mix. You could do something, and it generated a little bit, and you have to understand both worlds. They had lots of stuff which I couldn't understand, because they were already prepared to talk to the backend, right? So this was not just editor; it was more than this. And I couldn't get it entirely. So I said, okay, I will. This is too suspicious, I would just to have the full control. So you did C# stuff then?
C#, and then I went to some
Why not Java? So I mean,
I don't know. I just stumbled upon C# and that was it. I found I could do whatever I wanted. I created ASP.NET sites, and it just worked for me.
Yeah, so it worked for me because I had actually no association with C#, whatever. I just started with Java. And then C# was somewhere in the corner, so I never heard about that. So until now,
and I was a Microsoft user at that time, so everything I used was Microsoft and Word. So that's how I stumbled upon C#, I guess.
Okay,
it was the first thing I found. I used it; it worked. I could build whatever I wanted, so I continued with C#.
Okay, that's logical. So you used the tools for the film. Everything was Microsoft, and then of course,
and was also the CD-ROM was more the Macromedia stuff, Lingo and Director. Then later became Flash. I also went through this phase of the skip intro websites. Yeah. So where you had this annoying animation. So I made a lot of those animations.
Sure.
So there was my Filmschool had still some advantage. And then at the conference, I saw a demo of what was then, I think, Flex 1 or 2 of Adobe, where you had this really beautiful. Could be in Belgium, so it could be you had Multimania. I don't know if that was already at that time, or a Microsoft even, or not. I don't know. But there were a lot of conferences.
You were still nerdy, or you lost,
Yeah. I am nerdy till I retire, and even then.
No, because for me, the CD-ROM and the director and sounds a little bit boring for a nerd.
No, because it's really fun. If you make a business presentation. It has to look very appealing. So it has to look very beautiful. So you need a designer to make a nice interface. You have to program it because you have interaction in there. We even made catalogs with products on CD-ROM. So you had a database on the CD-ROM, a lot of pictures. So it's really a combination of programming and something which is visual, very appealing. And that's also what we did then on the website. a catalog has a lot of code, but it's also has to look nice and user-friendly. So that's the idea I always tried to take into my work. And when I first saw Flex, which at that time had a backend solution, where you had, for instance, streaming data from to show charts which update at real time. So that was really something where you had, again, that visual, very appealing stuff, very nice charts, components, buttons, but with a lot of programming in the backend. You could do a lot of stuff. And at that time, it already switched to Flex 3, where you didn't really need the backend anymore. You could just build whatever you want with your own backend. So I had my knowledge, and then at that time we were using SQL servers, C#, so we had web services there. So we could get any data from a database into this Flex application and could really show the kind of user interface you expect in a program, in a desktop application, but in the browser. And that's, I think, one of the main advantages that Flex has brought, that you can build heavy stuff in the browser. At the time, you didn't have the full power that JavaScript has now. Of course, everything has changed when Flash became obsolete, and you had these new frameworks which allowed you to do the same things. But at that time, that was really a big step forward.
What was your reaction to Steve Jobs' No Flash?
Well, that brings me to the story of my current employer. 10 years ago, I was looking for a new challenge. I had my experience with C#, with SQL, with Flex, and I came in contact with Televic Rail, which is a company who builds passenger information systems for trains, trams, metros. So what they do is, if you have the train guard announcing the next station is, that's something they automate, that we automate at Televic. And at that time, more than 10 years ago, they only had audio and LED displays, and they wanted to bring TFT displays on the train. And we selected at the time to use Flash and Flex because Adobe was saying, we are going to push Flash on every device. The idea at that time was, if you are in a car and you have an interactive dashboard, that will be Flash. And then indeed, a few years later, when our product was finished, Steve Jobs said, I'm going to kill Flash. I'm never going to put this on my iPad. And things evolved.
what Steve said, it was something funny in an interview. He said something like this, Flash is great on hard disks.
Maybe that was the idea.
This was a cool answer from him. Someone says, you are against Flash. It's no, true. We are building SSD. They are Flash-based.
But his idea was not bad. We should improve the browser to be able to do what Flash is doing. So that idea was good. But indeed, I had to kill one of my darlings. So I really loved Flex. I still do. I still have to support some legacy stuff in there. And the only switch from Actions.
I was just curious. I don't know why. I just last week I looked up the Flex, and this is actually Apache Flex. Apache Flex. It was open source entirely, and the page looks beautiful and very current. But I took a look at the release, and this was like the last release was 5 years ago or something like this, so nothing happens.
I didn't follow up on the Apache Flex, but indeed Adobe donated it to the community.
You should look it up. So the page looks really nice.
I know the page. The project still lives. They still do releases, and the idea is that you do not compile your ActionScript application anymore to Flash, but you compile it to HTML and JavaScript. And that's still active. And that's still an idea. So that's an Angular or a Vue or whatever. You also have still ActionScript and Flex.
You could even combine Angular with Flex now, right?
Because the ActionScript code is really good.
Yeah, it is. No kidding. No kidding. I mean, it looks almost like Java. And back then, it was a huge success. Java developers just loved it. So I know it. So lots of projects just switch, to Flex because, I was lots of projects involved that it was used actually.
If I do some legacy stuff in there and I switch from Java to ActionScript, I just have to remember that I have to put my variable in the wrong order if you come from Java. So, and actually for the rest, it's the same thing like switching from C# to Java. Of course, it's a different language. But you don't have to switch your mindset.
The problem with C# in Java are the naming conventions. In Java has camel case, and in C# the methods looks for me like constructors. So if I look at the code, I don't get it at all. What's a strange thing? And then I have to rethink, because the only thing which I really hate in C# in dynamic conventions, if they would use something like JavaScript or Java, would be no problem at all.
Yeah. It's you have to switch your ID, but the way you program is the same. So it's the same action script for C# for Java. If you're a good developer in one language, you definitely will be one in the other language.
Yeah. To a point, what I don't get, this is I see speakers at conferences. They speak every year about different language, and I have to say, maybe you can do this and you can program something with the language. But for instance, if you would like to know what can go wrong, to understand the errors and the entire ecosystems, it needs years until you are productive. At least until I'm productive. I spent my entire time with Java, subset of Java even, and JavaScript, and I still know just a little. So this is the problem. If I would just add additional languages like C# or Python, I mean, there's no time. So the only problem we have is the lack of time, I would say.
Yeah, of course.
I could do something in Python immediately, but hello world. But if someone will ask me, access from Python a SQL database without copying code out of a Stack Overflow. I mean, copy and paste is what I can also do. But to understand what happens, this is harder, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
And this is what you need in your professional life, because no one will hire you, to access a database. If they hire you right now, is because you understand the problem, you can help them, because you know what's going on behind the scenes, right? This is why I try to avoid Angular, because no one knows what's going behind the scenes. And if someone asks me, help us, I can say, okay, we will try, to pray a little bit and then see, it's like metrics,
It's we use Angular for one of the front end applications at Televic, and I did have a course, and I know how it works, and I can check the code and I can adjust some stuff, but the really flow of data within an Angular application, I leave that to the Angular developers. Indeed, you really have to understand how that system works. Yeah,
and they really know it. This is actually what I really question, because I think you have to be a committer to understand what's going on and to really optimize what's going on. I mean, if you just bind some fields, no problem. If you build, a really cutting-edge apps, I think it can become a problem. Do you remember the other technology from hell called Google Web Toolkit, GWT?
I never used that, no.
It was able to compile Java to JavaScript. And it was very, very popular among Java developers. I try to avoid it because I say, okay, if something breaks inside, I have no idea how to fix it. I mean, we can do something, but yeah. Now, I ask you the question about the nerdy stuff, and we end up, Televic is the company?
Televic, yes. We have 4 companies, and they all work around communication. So we are in trains, then the other ones are in healthcare, in conference, and in education.
And you are the train guy, of course. Yeah, because of the Lego.
One of. And indeed, that's very coincident. So I started with my Commodore 64 with my Lego train.
Yeah.
And now I'm programming TFT screens and systems to control content on trains. Yes, so it's a bit, the circle is round.
Yeah, perfect. And okay, so Steve Jobs destroyed one of your projects.
Well, he's destroyed Flex. So we moved on to other things. And also at Televic, they were already using Java. And because I used C# and it was similar, they asked me to take some of the Java development. So it's only, I think, 8 or 9 years that I'm using Java.
Only.
Okay, I'm getting old, I know. But the last year's very, very intensive, because we started developing new applications. And it's a challenging business that we are in. A lot of Java developers who make cloud applications, they have to be very careful about load and that you can handle a lot of requests. While on the other hand, we work for projects where we have 2 or 3 people working on the wayside in our content management system, telling the trains what they need to show. We have about, I think the biggest project is 100 trains connecting to this backend. So we know in advance how many users we have. Let's say that the train is user, but we have a lot of other challenges, like trains go into the depot for some repair, for instance. They are powered down, and a month later they power them up again. They connect to the wayside, and they have to be in sync again. So you lost a lot of traffic of states, of updates, of whatever. So there we have a completely different challenge than what you mostly have with Java cloud applications, where you have to be able to scale. We don't need to scale, but we need a reliable solution. A train is never connected in a stable way. You cannot connect a fiber cable to a train.
I reveal you a secret. Most of the companies don't have to scale. But everyone is talking about scaling because it's more fun.
Think they have to scale.
And everyone wants to scale without measuring nothing. So I'm spending my projects because everyone wants to scale, but they never scaled, and they have no singleton, synchronized, whatever, and everything goes south. Another thing is...
That's a very nice insight, yes.
Their project was the Flex Builder. This was actually a huge application. I was hired to help them with highly scalable architecture. And they mentioned Google. They would like to scale like Google. It's like, okay, I don't believe it, but I try to help you. I showed them actually what it would mean if we really would like to be highly scalable. And at the end, we had 4 application servers running full-time, and we had several thousand transactions per second, like per server. So we were able to handle 30,000 transactions per second. And it still runs happily to now, without any strange Google auto-scaling or whatever. So, I don't know whether you know the CAP theorem, consistency, availability, partition, tolerance. And this is like a theorem. This is mathematically proven, so there is no discussion about that. And you can choose between consistency and scalability if you distribute your application. So you have the consistency problem, but you cannot scale a lot. So you can solve that. What you cannot solve is if you had, several million trains, which had to be highly consistent, this would be interesting. But if you have a couple of trains and you have to be consistent, not a problem. So, solvable problem. But I think I know what happens. Your developers would like to scale, but they don't have to scale, right?
Well, we have to scale because our projects become bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Which is very nice. But the tools we use allow us to do so.
Yeah.
So
now you're a Java developer, right? Yeah. And you like Java more than C#? You have to say yes.
Used to it now. Yes. I use it. I use it more now. So yes, I love it more. No, actually, I love it because, like you say, C# changes from language. The same happened with Python. Python 2 and Python 3 are completely different.
Oh, C# as well.
C#, it really changed in the days that I used it a lot.
Okay.
But with Java, you have this very stable thing, which improves. So from time to time, you get new things, but you don't lose really stuff. You get new features. You get easier to write code. Then if you look into Spring, you can just remove a lot of code because Spring does it for you. I really love the language. I love to experiment. Java allows you to experiment. I started experimenting with Java on the Raspberry Pi. That also works very great. You can do a lot of fun stuff there. So yeah, I do love Java. So
this is actually the current story. So you're working with the company Televic, which had problem with Flex. And you replaced Flex with what? With JavaFX?
We did some JavaFX stuff, but then for maintenance tools, internal maintenance tools. And for the web, we went to Angular. Although it has a lot of...
Angular 1 or 2?
No, we were later. I think... I can't remember, but we're now on the latest Angular, and now we just keep moving on.
Yeah, you have to move on. What interests me is, probably that Angular follows the semantic versioning. So you get 2 releases a year, and they could introduce breaking changes.
Yeah.
So in your case, I think it is not a big problem because the trains have to reload anyway the entire state from the server with the Angular. But for my clients, if they build products, and I mentioned this, it kills Angular. Because what it means is they are forced to at least update twice a year the infrastructure. And sometimes there is not even, a release plan to do this. And
but on the trains, we have much more stable software, isolated software.
Okay.
Angular is for what our wayside users use to generate the content for the trains.
Okay.
So indeed, for trains, a train is a security thing. So you cannot just update anything you want there. A train is in service. Killing a train with a software update means that you block a lot of passengers. So you cannot just do that. So that's very restricted what we can do there with updates.
Okay.
What we need to do is send data. So if a train arrives in the station, we want to show in the station, you can go to this platform and then you will find the train going that direction and it is on time or it is delayed, that kind of stuff. So we have a lot of data going back and forth.
But you're not reloading the framework from train? Frequently.
No, and definitely not in service.
Okay.
It's always they post stuff. So they take the train, or someone goes to the train to do an update.
Okay.
We want to achieve that we can do it via software, but
okay.
Again,
cool.
It's reliability stuff.
So then you were forced to become a Java developer, and then you somehow found Raspi, or what's the story?
Well, the Raspberry. 7 years ago, I found this initiative called the Dojo. I don't know if you know it. It started in Ireland. So it's a computer club for kids to learn kids to program from 6, 7 years old.
You are strange. You are in Belgium. In Belgium, there is DevOps conference. You heard about that?
Yeah.
And they have DevOps for kids.
DevOps for kids.
And you
the same thing.
And you looked at Ireland, to find something.
Well, it started in Ireland.
This was around the corner was Kids Club, probably, Posters come to us kids, and you say, no, I go to Ireland, to find about Code Dojo.
But it started in Ireland, but Telenet, doing internet provider in Belgium, one of the top people there, Martine Tempels, she found Code Dojo in Ireland, and she started it, organizing it in Belgium.
Okay.
And it was about 7 or 8 years ago, I think. And I started Club 7 and 8 of that Code Dojo in Belgium, in Roeselare and Yper. And I think now we have 150 locations in Belgium alone.
Cool.
And what we do is every month, we have 3 or 4 hours with 20 to 30, 40 kids. And we program. It's a club. We don't teach them. We challenge them to make a game in Scratch.
Okay.
Or program a Lego robot or whatever. And what the fun thing is, it's free, it's with volunteers, and there you meet new people also. So it's not interesting for the kids alone, it's also interesting for the coaches. Because I never used Arduino or a Raspberry Pi before.
Okay.
And that's where I met people who are using this. So we are teaching kids of 10 years old to program an Arduino. So they are doing C code, which I never used before. And they are 10 years old, and they are programming a LED or a little servo or an LCD display.
Relay.
A relay, indeed. And again, the circle is round. So we come back to this hardware programming. And that's where I first got in contact with Arduino.
So I assume you did it before your son, right? So you wanted to do something with your son?
Yeah. My son was then too small even to go with me to that club. So
you could carry him,
Yeah. But now he's also programming in Scratch and making small little games. But he more likes to draw and imagine how a game should look like. So I think if he ever comes into the game industry, he will be the designer and the director.
Probably he will earn more money than a programmer, I would assume, in the gaming industry.
Yeah. Indeed, I should push him a bit.
Yeah.
And because I found there this Raspberry Pi, I started doing my own experiments. And this is really, if I had this kind of stuff when I was 14, 15 years old, I would be definitely a software, hardware engineer. I find it still magic that you can fit all this power in this small board of 35 euros, which is a full PC.
Yeah. It is incredibly powerful. This is what I found. I was completely underestimated how powerful the Raspis are.
And then if you take this Arduino, which you find the cheapest Arduino, I think, for 6 or 7 euros in China. What you can program with that, if you connect a LED strip and you can control, I have this in the drum boot of my son, I have these LED strips. And with the small Arduino, I can put whatever color I want on every pixel, on every LED. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So you only need this cheap electronics and free tools. Everything is free. If you have this Arduino IDE, which is free, you can have Visual Studio Code and Java, all for free. You can program on the Raspberry Pi. It's magic. For me, it's really magic.
Actually, I wanted to ask you the question, but now it doesn't make a lot of sense because I know your background. But this was the only preparation I did, think about one single question. I wanted to ask you the question, why Raspi? Because if you think about this, I'm pretty sure you could buy for 50 euros a used laptop.
Yeah.
So, and then everything becomes easier. I can program whatever I like without fiddling with the Raspi, because I need power supply, I need the wiring, and for me, I will spend probably 2 hours until I see something on screen. But if I will take, my and use the laptop, you can just get it almost for free. I get even more powerful environment without all the fiddling. So why you think Raspberry Pi is so appealing? No kidding. This is I'm still thinking right now. I'm more fascinated, because it's different. It looks nice. So I would use it like a leisure or whatever, just, to do something different. But to start programming, it is too cumbersome. So I would never get the idea to start with Arduino or Raspi.
The big difference is the GPIO, the pins. And that's a bit the fun story of the Raspberry Pi. When they started designing the Raspberry Pi, and even Upton, I think is the main developer of the Raspberry Pi, he just wanted to make a cheap PC. And then during the development of this board, in this chip, you have this GPIO, so you can bring the outside world to the processor by connecting LEDs and sensors and whatever. And then they said, we're developing, let's put a header on the board that you can connect some stuff. And they started with a small header. I think it only had 8 pins or something like that. And now you have 40 pins. And that's the real difference.
Okay.
You can build a JavaFX application which runs on the Raspberry Pi, but you can connect it to a temperature sensor. You can control LEDs, you can control relays, you can control whatever you want. And again, all these components are so cheap and easy to find.
So the big difference now, I understood this, on a cheap laptop, it's very easy to start programming, but it's very hard to talk to your environment. And with Raspberry Pi, of course, you need a setup, but it's very easy to control the pins, which send a you can measure the current or send current. With the sending current, you can control relays, right?
They are digital pins, so that means they are 1 or 0. So they are 0 volt or 3.3 volt. And you have that as an input or an output. So you can put 3.3 volt on it, and then you can read it. Is this high or low? Or you can put it to high or low. So you can read out a button, or you can control a LED. That's the simplest example. So instead of having a button directly connected to a LED, you can read it from software and control your LED.
Is it described in your book?
And so I started with these experiments and Java, and I wrote a small article, and I sent it to MacPi Netherlands. So that's MacPi is the official Raspberry Pi magazine, and they published it. A 4-page article about using Java on the Raspberry Pi. And then the publisher asked, is there a book in this? Could we have a book about this? And I was looking into existing books, and there were 5 or 6 year old books about Java on the Raspberry Pi. So indeed, it was time for an update. And the next day I had a table of contents for the publisher. I said, if you would write a book, this would be the content.
What's the name of the book?
It's Getting Started with Java on the Raspberry Pi.
And author is Frank?
And Frank Del Porte. You can find it on LeanPub and on the Elektor website.
And how is the easiest way to buy it? Can I buy it on Amazon or directly from your page, or how to buy it?
Directly from my blog, you find a link to if you want the ebook or the paper book. So webtechy.be.
And what's your blog?
Webtechy.be.
Webtechy.be. Techie, CH, exactly.
Yeah.
What's the table of contents, roughly?
So roughly, I go through the history of Java, because in the last years, a lot has changed in Java. Since we had this 6-month release cycle and all these new features coming in. And on the other hand, it's an old language. It's 25 years old this year. So I'm talking about Java. I'm talking about JavaFX, about Maven, because I use Maven to build every project. I talk about IDEs, and I have IntelliJ and Visual Studio Code.
Super.
Because you can use Visual Studio Code on the Raspberry Pi itself. And then I have a lot of examples where we use Spring. And then I also have a Q example with, and then a big part is with Pi4j. Pi4j is a framework which connects Java with the GPIOs in a very easy way.
Okay. How easy is it? Let's say I would like to set the pin to 1. Do I only have to know the number and say set high?
Yeah. And it's 4 or 5 lines.
Okay.
And you're started. So it is very, very easy. And the Pi4j project is started by Robert Savage. He's an American guy. And the last months I got a bit involved in his project because he's working on a new version, which is fully Java 11 modular with a new native library to control the GPIOs, because the Raspberry Pi 4 is a bit different than the previous ones. So we can do a lot more. There is a very bright future for Java on Raspberry Pi. So you have on the one hand side, you have JavaFX, where you can build very beautiful user interfaces. And on the other hand, you have your hardware and your GPIOs that you can control a lot of stuff. and connect, whatever you want.
Funny story. So you approached me and say I wrote a book, Java, and I use Spring. And I have to say, I never use Spring actually in my project. So I'm living in parallel world to yours. But I say, okay, well, we can talk about something, but what could be interesting to you? Just take a look at Quarkus. And I say, okay, I will find it out. And you did experiment, and what you did actually with Quarkus?
So in my book, I have this small database proof of concept application, an example, that you can have a REST API, and you can push sensor measurements from any device. So imagine you have a setup where you have your Raspberry Pi as a server, and some Arduino boards with sensors around your house that you could push data from your Arduinos to this Raspberry Pi data. That's just an example.
This is described in your book.
This is described in the book.
I have to admit, I didn't look at your book, but I plan to buy it just to support you. So, but I will read it.
Perfect idea.
Yeah, exactly. And I will do it, but right now I'm really overloaded with work, and I just misused the interview to find out what's in your book. But okay, this is actually you described in your book as small. You using Raspberry as a cloud, let's say, and the Arduino sending. Perfect.
Yeah. And it's an H2 database.
This is a new buzzword. This is the edge device.
It's
the Raspberry is the edge device. Okay,
it's my edge device. Yes, indeed. Yeah. And this uses Spring, H2, and all the stuff there. And there was one remark at the end of this chapter. It takes about 60 seconds to start this application on a Raspberry Pi 3. And I put this on my blog, the same article. And then you said, that was your remark about this article. How about this 60 seconds? Did you use Quarkus? And that's what I did indeed. I made a new application from scratch with Quarkus and Panache. With exactly the same functionality.
Okay,
so you have Swagger, you have an H2 database, you have the REST APIs, that's it. And I compiled it to jar. The same thing as the Spring jar and a Quarkus jar. And I think that it's about 3 times faster that it starts on the Raspberry Pi 3, and then on the Raspberry Pi 4 it's even a bit faster. And I also tried to do this native, because that's another buzzword. But the native doesn't seem to be ready for the RM processor.
Yeah, this can be.
So so there is some work to do there. So I was not able to start my Quarkus native.
But native would be unfair because now we have comparison Java to Java. If we
indeed. Yeah.
And so, you liked the Quarkus experience, or was it strange?
Yeah, because of this challenge, I was also looking into MicroProfile, because these are then the new things to me. It's just a choice you have to make, I think. Do you go for Spring?
But it's an interesting story because the funny story is someone immediately replied to your investigation like, who cares over view seconds and memory? You saw the tweet, if the documentation in Quarkus is crappy. But I think the documentation in Quarkus is really nice, and I have no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my honest question. Was it okay for you to port it, or was it hard, or just worked, or what?
I didn't use Panache before, and I didn't use Quarkus before.
Yeah,
I found all the documentation on the site. It's Spring doesn't use really Java EE. The annotations are a bit different. But or annotations, you just have to know the good ones. The idea is the same. The startup is a bit different. Okay. But do I prefer Spring above Quarkus or vice versa? I cannot tell you at this moment.
No, they are very similar. I just wanted to find out whether you were able to somehow easy migrate the application, or was it challenging? This was the only question I can.
It was not a problem. It was only a few hours, and I had my proof of concept application. Cool. That was not the only thing I spent a lot of nights on was trying to do the native stuff.
Yeah, but this is completely different beast, because this native stuff is based on Graal, which is outside of Quarkus. This is a completely different fiddling.
And you also have Spring also supporting Graal VM now. I didn't experiment with it, but that's the next step. And I have to be honest, spending the nights, that was the Raspberry Pi doing the work, because it takes hours and hours and hours to do the native compiling, and it failed after 4 hours because of an out-of-memory exception. So
you know the Turing Pi project?
No. I'm learning a lot from you.
Yeah, see, you have to look it up. So they will. You won't sleep, the next nights if you find this out. I think it is sold out right now. But take a look at Turing Pi. So you get your own cloud of Raspberries. This is just a hint.
Yeah. There are indeed a few cloud providers now working with Pis.
Yeah. So here's also interesting part. I wrote you an email. If you already with Quarkus, just try Helidon. And they say, but I have no time. And someone on tweet, day after, they say, what about Helidon? And your answer is, okay, I will investigate, This is the power of Twitter.
Yeah, indeed. But I was looking into Helidon, but there indeed lacks some documentation.
They have great documentation, but you have to know a little bit more about MicroProfile. But we can challenge other listeners if they like. They should port, the application, your application to Helidon and help you. So why not?
Yeah,
I would love to do it, but right now I have so many projects, also pet projects, and if we start, with Raspi, I will never sleep actually, regardless whether Raspi is doing something or not. So here's the deal. What I would like to do is I would just mention your book once again, then call it a show. So because otherwise it's going to be too long, and I would like to re-invite you back in a few weeks, in autumn. And then just talk about Raspi and Java, if you like, or whatever. Perfect. But just, that try to promote Java on Raspi a little bit more, and we can walk through pseudocode, what to do to read the temperature sensor, or whatever. And right, and then we can talk about. I have no idea about Spring, but we can have Quarkus, MicroProfile, or Helidon. So this is what I can talk with you. In Spring, no idea. I can say, okay, there is a Spring, it's a popular framework, but I never used that. So.
And all my code for all the examples is on GitHub. So if someone wants to experiment or try to make a Helidon version of the Quarkus application, it's also on GitHub. It would be nice to have more fuss about Java on Raspberry Pi. I was planning to do some jugs here in Belgium this year, but of course, because of Corona, they were all stopped. So that's for later.
Do it online.
Yeah, I'm looking, if someone is interested in a virtual jug, I definitely want to do a presentation about this. I have a long article about Java and JavaFX on Raspberry Pi is also on the Oracle magazine, Oracle Java magazine.
Send me the links. I will put it in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do that. Yeah.
And your book once again is starting Java on Raspi. This is the name?
Getting started with Java on the Raspberry Pi, indeed.
Okay. And the publisher is
Elektor.
Elektor. And Leanpub. And on Leanpub
you find, on Leanpub you find the ebook version.
Okay. Thank you. So have fun with Raspi.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for the invite.